we have Chris with Advanced Clutch Technology. He's going to tell us a little bit about the clutches in front of us.
Great. Well, one of the things we like to do is improve our product. And one of the ways we do that is to take the current product, test it, and find out where the spots are that leave some room for development. A good example of that is our very popular twin disc clutch for high horsepower Mustangs, Camaros, Corvettes, that sort of thing, where we had a steel cover for years that worked really, really well. We stiffened it up, but there's still some room for improvement. So what we did is we went ahead and moved it over to an aluminum forged cover that has lighter weight, less flex, stiffer, and performs better. So this is something we finally went, even though we had a good working product, we did through testing, we found a way to make it even better.
Anywhere from $8.75 to $15.
How did you decide what things to test and how to test them? What's that testing process like?
We both do internal testing on equipment that we manufacture ourselves, and we do in-car testing. So on some of the equipment, we were watching the deflection of these parts, and while it was in normal specs and reasonable specs, there was room for improvement there.
Interesting.
So through product development, through CAD and finite element analysis and those type of things, we found shapes that were much stiffer and lighter both. So once we built the parts, we went to those machines, tested for deflection, found a huge improvement, put them in the car, and right now we've got guys running 200 miles an hour with these parts in this car.
That's great.
And the improvement is noticeable. At the feel, the driver loves it, and the car accelerates quicker. And it's an overall better product.
So as far as clutches go, the technology that's in there is all based on that centrifugal or centrifugal, however you want to spin it.
Partially, yeah.
Pun intended. So tell us more about that aspect of it and how that how that engagement takes place with the clutch.
Okay, the overall engagement works off of a diaphragm spring, which is cut apart here to show you, where you push here, and the ratio between the lever arm and the contact pivot point is such that with a small amount of force, you can create a lever arm and raise up the base to lift it off of the clutch disc. And when you let go of the pedal, that comes back and clamps the disc down. That's what drives the car.
Yeah, like 5 of them.
And that drives the car. And the nice thing about that is that those are variables we can play with. And what that does is shows up on the equipment we have built to test this. We can see which ratios to use. We change some of these features by as little as 0.5% at a time to dial in to get a curve that makes sense with the diaphragm spring.
So you mentioned the CAD program. What CAD program do you use normally?
We currently use SolidWorks, which is very popular. It's something that most people coming into the company have had experience with, which is good. It has some limitations. So from there, we also use the finite element analysis and the Cosmos version of that. And we can use other tools such as AlphaStruct and ANSYS as needed.
And the finite element analysis, that adds in that physics engine, doesn't it? Is that the advantage of that, or am I?
Right, finite element analysis is taking basically structural dynamics and taking it into a finite level. In other words, instead of a big beam with deflection, you're taking it into 1,000 small little beams connected to each other. And a computer can calculate that very quickly. You still have to know what you're doing. You still have to set it up properly, but you can do a lot of calculations in a short amount of time and make a lot of changes in shapes that are complex that will show you exactly the results are going to be ahead of time.
So
and then we go to the lab to correlate. Because you get a 15% improvement on the screen, you want to see if that's really a 15% improvement, or if it's 10%, or if it's 25%. And then you got to find out if it's that far off, you got to know why. But what we're finding is in this particular program, we expected an increase in rigidity by over 40%. I think it was 46%. We received. So that was nice to see those numbers work out that way.
So that's where understanding your calculus and your trig really comes in handy, huh?
Absolutely. You may not do it the same way you did in the classroom, but that background provides the tools you need to take advanced computer tools with good old-fashioned, old-school engineering, put them together, and produce a product that can go to market.
All right. Was there anything else you want to tell me?
That's it at the moment, I think.
Great. I really like your display, the way you put it away so that you can see inside. That really helps to understand what's going on inside that
Well, part of this display was to show also that in the place where a single disc clutch from the factory went, in the same spacing, we put a twin disc clutch in, 2 friction discs. It all stacks up so it fits in the same vehicle without any modifications. So as you can see how that works now. It's all packaged in tightly to make sure that all fits.
Very nice. Well, thanks so much. That was very interesting and that informative. And
Didn't bore you too much?
no, actually, I learned some things. So thank you very much for doing that.
Great. It's exciting, and the neat thing is next year we'll be doing more stuff. We got a whole bunch of new things coming on the horizon that we're working on right now.
Yeah.
Can't show today,
Yeah.
but we're gonna have a whole bunch of new things out here next year.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Chris, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right, thanks. All right.